Good morning and welcome to Think Future TV. I'm your host, Chris Kalabukis, and once again we're coming at you live from deep, deep, deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California, the innovation capital of the world. We're talking innovation, startups, the future. Not necessarily those and not necessarily in that order. Oh, happy day! It's a happy day! Why is it a happy day, you ask? Well, a couple years ago, the Obama administration, Obama himself, signed something called the Jobs Act. And one of the provisions in the Jobs Act was to remove the barrier for anyone and everyone to be able to invest in startups. You see, back in the 20s, back after the Great Depression, or during the Great Depression, or right after the big stock market crash of 1929, the government stepped in and they said, you know what, we can't have regular Joe and Jane public investing in these things. They're just too risky. So let's just restrict it to only people who make a ton of money. So what they did is they went in and they said, you're only allowed to invest in startups in these risky businesses if you make more than $200,000 a year if you're one person, or $300,000 a year if you're a couple. I believe that was added later, but I believe the minimum amount of money that you had to make, or the amount of equity that you owned, or amount of stock you had, or basically how much money you actually had yourself, had to be over a certain amount. You had to have $1 million in equity on something, or you had to make it at least $200,000 a year, something like that. Anyways, basically what it did was it blocked off access to funds to only the rich. So people had to make more than that or have more than that. Otherwise, they couldn't invest in startups. They were barred from investing in startups. This is why you and I, just regular people who don't make that kind of money, can't invest in startups. I mean, nowadays, salaries in places like Silicon Valley and in New York have gotten to the point where you take a couple that are easily making over that much. That's a middle class around here. So they're easily making more than that much. That's middle class, and they're the ones who can invest. But what happened in 2013 is that Obama signed the Jobs Act, and part of the Jobs Act was to remove that limitation. Now, the problem is that the SEC has been screwing around all this time, and only just now, yesterday or Friday, a couple days ago, only just now removed that restriction. So now you're probably wondering, in Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and these companies that you're funding, you notice that you can't get shares of the company, can you? You can only get the product that they're going to deliver. So if I wanted to back a drone or something like that, I would just get a drone. Or if I wanted to back a movie, I would get a DVD of the movie, but I wouldn't get shares in the company. So if I backed that drone company or that Pebble watch, I would get a Pebble watch. But now Pebble can actually offer stock, or any company can actually offer stock. So not only can you go in there and say, I'm going to give you money for your product, you can say, I'm going to give you money for shares in your company. So anyone and everyone, you don't have to be rich to invest in startups. And this is a fantastic thing. I am so glad that this is happening. On the one side, the naysayers are going, what are you talking about? Now there's even more chances for people to lose their money. Well, hey, if you want to lose your money, you can go to Vegas and gamble it all away. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. But here, if your money is now available to startups, think of how many hundreds, how many thousands, how many millions of startups out there could have been over the last 80 years or so if only everybody was available to invest in startups. And it's a two things. So one, the funding, more funding is now available for more startups, so more businesses will be built. And on the flip side, it's one actual example of the government saying, you know what, you're adults, you can figure out your own way of investing. We're taking off the kid gloves. If you lose all your money, it's your responsibility. So it's a great example of the government actually turning around to its people and going, you know what, you be responsible for your money. We're not going to be your nanny anymore. And that's a great thing. That's it for me for today. See you next time. And until then, don't forget to think future.